Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Let's Play Planet Coaster Building Bay Area Blast. In this episode, we'll be going over two different things, the first of which is building the wooden roller coaster, which I had mentioned in the previous episode. The next of those two things is doing the landscape for the left side of the park, which is where the wooden roller coaster will be. But before we do any of that, I just wanted to tell you guys a little story about this morning. So, at about 5 o'clock in the morning, I hear this weird pounding sound, and this is like, I'm talking about at school and college. So I hear this pounding sound in like my apartments, and I'm not sure where it's coming from or whatnot. I was thinking kind of like maybe it's my neighbor upstairs who always seems to make a bunch of noise, but it wasn't. So during this whole process, I don't know where it's coming from. So finally it starts to calm down. I think it's going away. Now, here I'm thinking, oh yeah, it's just my neighbor. It's being really annoying, and it's like, oh, come on now. And as soon as I start thinking that, and I like make some comments like out to myself, and it's like all of a sudden I just hear this pounding and banging on like the door at our apartment, and I'm like freaking out, and like I'm just laying in bed like in the dark, and the first thing that's coming to my mind is like, oh no, it's one of those killer clown things, like, oh no. So like I'm laying in bed, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get my pocket knife and just like hold it next to me, and I'm like, I have my phone and I have like 911 dialed up just in case. But like this pounding wasn't like, oh, I'm pounding because I want to like, you know, I want to like get my friends to wake up and let me in their room. It was like, I'm gonna pound this door because I want to kill somebody today. It was like really intense. So there I'm just laying there, and it's just like, oh no. And finally it just goes away, but it's like, oh man, what a great 5 o'clock a.m. wake up call. So yeah, that was kind of an interesting way to wake up today, but I just thought I'd let you guys know about that, since I thought it was kind of funny. In retrospect, apparently it was some guy who was just really drunk, probably thought our room was his room, and he's wondering why his roommates weren't letting him in, but it was really not his room. So yeah, but anyways, back to the video. So, as I had mentioned in the previous episode, I was going to start working on a wooden roller coaster, which was going to be kind of a more traditional out and back layout. Something that I don't normally do. I have one roller coaster video, a single ride production video called Wolverine, which was kind of like my attempt at a DIN Corporation wooden roller coaster. And if you don't know who DIN Corporation is, they're a defunct company. At least I don't think they make roller coasters anymore. They're the ones who made the notoriously rough Cyclone at Magic Mountain, and that one, it was like the Wolverine ride came out pretty well. So this was like a second try at making an out and back layout, and I think this one actually came out pretty well. It's actually pretty monstrous in size. When I finished building it, I wasn't quite expecting it to be as big as it was. So I wasn't really sure whether I wanted to go for like a DIN Corporation style, which don't generally get too large in size. They're a little bit more compact than some of the other roller coasters you see in like the Midwest. But there's a couple of reasons also why I didn't make it too large. Part of it was just like the friction force in Planet Coaster for the wood roller coasters seems to be a little bit too high, and a lot of people have commented about this in like the forums and stuff like that, but I kind of agree. Trying to make a GCI roller coaster, especially in Planet Coaster, is relatively difficult. Part of it's also because we don't have the flyer trains that GCI actually has on their tracks. But the other reason is just, yeah, the friction is just a little bit too high to actually get the intensity that we're looking for a GCI coaster. And if you don't know what GCI stands for, it's the acronym for Great Coasters International, which is pretty notoriously known for like their super incredibly intense and wacky wooden roller coaster layouts, short of being like a hybrid almost in a way. But they're probably one of the best wooden roller coaster companies in the world right now, at least in my opinion. I think they are. But yeah, anyways, so the other reason is also because when you create a large wooden roller coaster in Planet Coaster, it seems to take a little bit more toll on the frame rates, just because I think part of it is just it has to render so many more objects. Like, it has the wooden supports, right? So that takes a lot of processing power to render, more so than like the smaller supports that are on like the steel coasters. So that was just another thing. I didn't want to make a coaster like so large that it would take like another like 5 frames per second just for that single ride alone, or for that reason alone. I don't think it would be responsible for that much of it, like a performance drop, but I mean, in the long run, it's gonna count against the performance a bit, so I tried to minimize it as much as possible. But for what it is, it looks pretty good, I think, after everything I did. At some point, I had to actually readjust the height of the ride because towards the end, it was really snailing to the station, and I was like, oh, okay, I know wood coasters get kind of slow, but like, I don't know if we wanted to crawl at like 2 miles per hour to get to the station, so I had to readjust the height. I think I added like another like 20 feet or so, just because like 70 something wasn't enough. So actually it was more like 30 feet. I added up to like I think 100 and something feet. So it just seemed a lot smoother, and like the whole ride experience was just a bit more fun. But yeah, I needed to fix that up, otherwise the ride was just way too slow to actually be enjoyable. And then here I'm just kind of going through and smoothing up the track a little bit. You don't need to smooth too much on wooden roller coasters because, well, the honest truth is that wood coasters are not supposed to be smooth. So I mean, like, don't take it like the transitions shouldn't be smooth, but you can get away with only smoothing a little bit. You don't need to smooth too much. Just don't let it be like angle snap kind of look. That's always bad. That's another thing. Like I won't comment on certain videos on YouTube just because like I like their layouts, but sometimes it looks like some people kind of just like they throw in their rides and like the smooth tool is like not on their mind, which you know, it's like not an issue. Like it's okay. Not everybody focuses on making roller coasters, but it's sometimes good to like smooth out some parts, I think. The only exception to that is obviously custom inversions. Like, it's pretty difficult to make smooth ones, but I'm sure at some point there will be a way to like make ones that are smooth, but we'll see. So I know kind of in the background like the POV is playing, and I promise at some point I'll actually make a real POV video, but sorry that it's kind of like sped up 4 times for this video, so it might get kind of like nauseous feeling from watching that, but hopefully it's okay. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and it's not really pertaining to the video, but just in general, I was kind of looking around last night at computer upgrades for my desktop at home. The one I'm using at school is really just one that I got for school purposes, but it is able to play games because I brought my GTX 1060 with me. That's probably not something I'm going to need to upgrade. It's more or less a GTX 980, just like a newer version of it in some ways. It's about the same performance, so it's pretty decent. But I do want to upgrade my processor at home. Quite ironically, this really cheap Dell desktop that I bought for school, which was like $150, performs better than my gaming desktop at home, which has an AMD FX 6300. And I used to like that processor a lot, and I was an AMD fanboy, and I still am. But I wanted to see maybe if I should get an Intel i7 7700, that or it's a Ryzen 1700. But it sounds like, unfortunately, because I have a super small like desktop at home, like I have a micro ATX case, and if you don't know what that is, basically I have a really small form factor case that's not able to fit a majority of motherboards. So the original motherboard it came with was about 9.6 inches by 9.6 inches, and most motherboards on the market are no less than 10 inches. So I contacted the company that makes my computer, which is Velocity Micro, and asked them about the case dimensions and finding out what the max motherboard size is for that case, but we'll have to see. If it doesn't end up working, the only one that I can really get right now is the Ryzen 1700 processor, which isn't something that I have an issue with, but I've heard that Planet Coaster doesn't really like to be nice with processors that have more than 16 threads, or like 12 threads, I'm sorry, which unfortunately the Ryzen has 16 threads, so if that's the case, then I'm going to have some issues with the Ryzen. But I think in the long run, if it gets optimized well, hopefully that processor will actually be able to play the game even better, maybe, than some of the i7s. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I don't want to get too techy in this. I don't know if everyone who watches my videos are really into computers, but I can get a little nerdy about that, so I'll try to avoid that a little bit. So anyways, getting back to the video. On the left side of the park, because I had the wooden roller coaster on that side, I kind of went for the Alpine style theme. And I'll show you guys more in the next video when I start working on the station and scenery, but there was a few reasons why I went with the Alpine style theme. The first one was that I wanted more open space, and I knew by using more Alpine style trees I could get away with using less trees but still getting the same I guess experience or the same theme that I'm looking for. Sometimes when you use like deciduous like trees, it requires you to use more of them to get the same atmosphere that you're looking for, but with the Alpine style I could get away with less trees, which also brings me to the next point of it, which is I wanted to make sure that there was more visibility for this wooden roller coaster because it is larger, and I know it wasn't intended to be my weenie, but it might possibly be. But anyways, we'll have to get to that stuff a little bit in the next episode, since this one's ending up a little bit sooner than I'd like. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope you guys look forward to the next one when we start working on the wooden coaster station and scenery. But I'll see you guys in the next episode. See ya.